What's up, Geeks and Gamers? I am back once again with another movie review, but this time without Mike. Instead, I have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Benjamin. And today we are going to be talking about Dear Evan Hansen, a movie that just came out tonight. So, Ben, we're just going to jump right into it. What are your initial thoughts of Dear Evan Hansen?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts.
All right, let's start breaking them down a little bit here.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
for sure.
Let's see what we got going
on. So for anybody who might not know, Dear Evan Hansen was like a smash hit musical that came out in 2017 on Broadway, and has now been adapted into a feature film for 2021. So I have not seen the stage musical, but I have listened to all the music, love the music, and kind of read the entire story like while I was listening to the music when I first discovered the musical. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. But went and watched the movie today. And like I said, I have kind of mixed feelings. There are certain aspects of the story that I still really do like. And I liked how they translated into the movie. And then there were certain things that I didn't think translated as well into movie form, and also things that were controversial in the original musical that I think still remain kind of the same in the movie. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. You know, there's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of not so great. And I think one of the areas in the movie especially was the music. The music did not translate very well to film format. It's kind of hard to take certain musicals and turn them into movie musicals, you know, straight from that kind of Broadway format to the silver screen. It's kind of difficult to do that for some things. And I think for this, they didn't execute it super well. And I understand why, because it's like these songs are not exactly the most extravagant songs. And so the scenes that they're in are kind of boring because there's not a whole lot there visually to focus on. Like the songs themselves, they're not badly written. In fact, I think they're wonderfully written songs, pretty much all of them, but it just doesn't translate as well. So the impact's not there that maybe the writers want to have, and things like that. As far as like the storytelling goes, you know, this movie, if you know anything about the subject material, you know, it deals with heavy themes, like suicide, like grief, you know, anxiety, depression, things like that. And in a lot of ways, it does handle them well and in some scenes, and then some other things I'm not quite sure, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it. It leaves me kind of torn because I'm not sure how exactly I'm supposed to feel or how exactly I want to feel, and it's kind of difficult to decipher that, especially as someone who's dealt with some of those things myself. It makes it kind of me unsure where I lie on those different things, I guess, if that makes sense. So, like I said, overall, mixed bag. I thought the performances were really good. I know one of the common criticisms has been Ben Platt, who plays Evan. He also played Evan on the on stage and on Broadway, but I didn't think I wasn't too worried about him looking too old. Adults have played teenagers in Hollywood for years. I'm not too worried about that. I thought he did great in the performance. I thought he did, you know, he's literally won awards for his performance on Broadway. I don't, you know, I don't see any problem with that. I know a lot of people have seen problems with that. That was the least of my concerns with the movie.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, come on. That's not. I mean, Tobey Maguire played freaking Spider-Man when he was like in his like mid-20s or something,
and he did not look like he was what, 16 is what Spider-Man's supposed to be.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, so I don't think, you know, overall, I thought it was a mixed bag. I think there were things that I really liked. I did like some of the things they added at the end. I don't want to do any spoilers. This isn't a spoiler review, but there's some stuff they added to the end of the movie that was not in the musical that I appreciated that they added. I did think that did help with some of the hard to palate ending that the musical does have. It does have a not very palatable ending. If any of you guys have seen it or know about it, you kind of know why and the reasons why, but I don't want to leave any spoilers here, just because I'd rather leave it as non-spoiler as possible. So
yeah, I mean, basically, as kind of like the plot or the premise of this movie, it's about Evan Hansen, a high school senior who has like social anxiety disorder. And it's kind of about his journey, or it's supposed to be about his journey of self-discovery and acceptance following the suicide of a fellow classmate, where he basically kind of like creates this double life type of thing where he was like really good friends with this classmate and he really
Right.
wasn't. So the whole movie is based upon basically lies that he tells.
Mhm.
And because of that, Evan is a piece of shit. I just want to say that. I do not like Evan at all. I think that he was awful in the movie. I just could not relate to him as a character because throughout the entire movie, you know that he is a liar, and you know that he is basically manipulating all of these different people that are in his life.
Mhm.
And I will say though, I will say that despite the fact that throughout this entire movie, I was totally not on board with it, but I knew that as I was watching the movie, it was really going to be dependent on how they executed the ending of the movie and stuff.
Mhm.
And I will say that the ending of the movie was executed fairly well, I thought, because they actually show Evan as a character taking responsibility for messing up all these people's lives. He apologizes for it. He works to do better. He actually has a redemption arc in this movie that I overall enjoyed, and I thought was done well, even though he was basically a terrible person throughout the
Mhm.
entire movie. And because of that, it made it very hard to want to continue to watch this movie. This movie was very hard for me to continue to stay invested in
Mhm.
because of who he was as a character. And the music was awful. I just like I did not like the songs. They were presented terribly because you're basically just watching these people just standing around in these empty rooms just singing to themselves throughout most of the movie. And every time that they started to go into another song, I was like, oh my gosh, just no. Like to me, this musical did not translate well to film because there wasn't really a need for this to be a musical as far as the film goes. They could have easily have made this a drama without the music, and I think that it actually would have worked better translating this to film. I believe there's a book as well. I'm assuming that they probably don't have like all the lyrics,
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
like it's a book, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what they should have done with this film as well. I think that they should have made this a drama piece, a drama film, and leave the music to what suits best for that music, which is the theatrical stage. So but like I said, I as I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, it's really going to depend on how they end this movie. I thought that they ended it pretty well, and so because of that, I definitely view the movie more favorably because I do like redemption themes in movies. I like redemption arcs. Those are
Mhm.
always the arcs that I'm going to fall for and be a sucker of the most. Being someone who has dealt with all sorts of crap in my own life and stuff, and even like some of the stuff as far as like the suicide stuff goes and mental health issues and all that stuff. I agree that it was kind of a mixed bag, I thought. But overall, I think that even if they didn't necessarily address some of it the best, I think that it did put a lot of interesting highlights, whether it was intentional or not, on being that prescriptions aren't always going to be the thing that helps people at the end of the day. It's about loving people and about being there for those people that are
Mhm.
going to matter the most. And I thought that was very interesting also how it kind of like delved into some of the stuff that Evan Hansen was dealing with as well, because he's a guy who has all of this bottled up inside of him, and he has basically constructed lies around his own insecurities and the issues that he's struggling with. And I can actually relate to that a little bit because as a husband and a father and everything else, with some of the crap that I've dealt with personally, internally, and everything else, some of that stuff I have just left bottled up inside and haven't really expressed ever, because I'm like, well, I'm the man of the house. I have to be strong for my family. I have to be the pillar for them and everything else. So that's some of the stuff that I've struggled with as well. So yeah, overall, I thought that it's not a great movie, but I don't think it's quite as terrible as some people are making it out to be. So
Mhm. And I would agree with that. And like I know you've had some of the same struggles that I have, at least with different insecurities, things like that. And I think that they do address those well. I'm someone who's had to take medication for anxiety and things like that. But at the end of the day, and kind of the message I think that they're trying to get across, and they do a decent job of, is at the end of the day, Evan is a person that does these things because he's looking for someone to value him, for someone to love him. And he finds that, even though it's through a lie, and he realizes, you know, kind of at the end of the day, that there are people that do love him for who he is and not this kind of facade that he's built around his life. And that's important for all of us to know, is like, we don't have to lie to people to make them love us.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to be us. And that is an important message. You know, I still know people to this day that struggle with those things. And I think that is important for people to know, is those things, and whether or not they handled some other subject matters as well as they could have, you know, like I said, that's to be debated. But at the end of the day, I think that message does still ring true, as it does in the stage play. And I think that is something important for people to take into consideration. And I don't think that this movie is near as bad as some people have made it out to be, and that it's just completely like, you know, I've seen things said like it's disrespectful, it's all of these other things, it's making fun of these things. And I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it that way. You know, I can see where there can be some criticism and constructive feedback of the movie and the way the story is told. It's the same for the musical, but at the end of the day, I don't think that the amount of people kind of just laying waste to this movie for the different themes that it covers, I don't think that's necessarily warranted.
I agree. I've seen people that make criticisms about like, oh, well, you know, all these kids are on all these prescriptions and stuff in this movie, and I'm like, well, they didn't really put that in negative light or a positive light,
but that's that's realistic.
Yeah, it's realistic.
It really is.
And I thought that it was interesting how they kind of dealt with some of that type of stuff in the movie. With that being said, that is going to be our review for Dear Evan Hansen. Ben, what are you going to give this movie for a rating?
I'd give it a C+, I think. Like I said, I think it was a mixed bag. I think there is a lot of good there, but I think there's also some negative there. I would say if you do like the musical, I'd say give the movie a shot. See if you like it. You know, but I think at the end of the day, the musical itself, the musical elements of it, those belong on Broadway, and I think they are better served that way. But as a dramatic story that's being told, say without the musical elements, I think that they told their story well, and I didn't think I did appreciate kind of what they did with the ending. So
I'm going to give this movie a D. It would be an F if the ending was awful, but it wasn't, and that was pretty much the only thing that ended up redeeming this movie from being an F for me, was the ending. Besides that, I didn't think that the performances were all that great. Some of them were better than others, but it was kind of a mixed bag for me. The music, I just did not like the music, and there were some of those other things too. So with that being said, that is going to be our review for Dear Evan Hansen. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you've seen the movie, what you think about it, and make sure that you go check out our podcast. Ben is also on this podcast, the Epic Man Podcast. We are on YouTube and on all of your favorite podcast audio platforms. And make sure that you go check out Geeks and Gamers. Become a member over there. We have a lot of great benefits over there for our members. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you in another review very soon.